Hey, I'm kind of glad you didn't pick up. I kind of just called to hear your voice. I miss you. I've been thinking about you, and I've been thinking about our love, and how much I miss you. Every day. I hope and I wish that you're doing okay. I want us to go back to the old days because I miss you and I just thought of you. Of you listening to this, the thought of you on the other side of the line, I can't hang up. I don't want this to end. Not again. I don't know if you miss me too, but I hope you do. Things never go back to what we were, what I became so used to, what I thought would be forever.
Cause you won't look after my wounds. I suppose you will never regret it. I should throw myself out from the roof. Cause you fucking love it when I feel it. Cause you won't look after my wounds. I suppose you will never regret it. I should throw myself out from the roof. Cause you fucking love it when I feel it. Cause you won't look after my wounds. I suppose you will never regret it. I should throw myself out from the roof. Cause you fucking love it when I feel it. Cause you won't look after my wounds. I suppose you will never regret it. I should throw myself out from the roof. Cause you fucking love it when I feel it.
I'm finally tired of all the standby. Never said that I was perfect, but I'm willing to try. Let me show you what I'm made of. I am so much more than my mistakes.
And I'm finally tired of all the standing by. Never said that I was perfect, but I'm willing to try. Let me show you what I made of. I am so much more than my mistakes.
Will happen in the same way, but that last time the beginnings of that controversy happened in exactly the same way as the beginnings of this controversy. A car appeared that looked exactly like another car. In that case it was the 2020 Racing Point and the 2019 Mercedes. Racing Point, which is now Aston Martin, said that they'd done it legitimately. The FIA agreed with them. There were some protests, and in the end they were fined and docked points. So I think there's some way to go in this controversy yet.
And is there can we just sort of, so when we're talking about IP and intellectual property, just because obviously Christian Horner's kind of skirting around it a bit for legality reasons, and sort of we are a bit as well. But sort of what we're saying is, if it's in their heads, it's fine, and it's just what they remember. But when we're talking about intellectual property, we are saying Red Bull want to make sure no one's downloaded some stuff, put it on a cloud somewhere, or put it on a USB drive if anyone still uses USB drives, and taken it to Aston Martin and then uploaded it and said, right guys, look at all these plans I have, right? That's because no one's actually saying that, but that's when we're talking about IP, we actually mean literal files and stuff like that, right? I think. Basically, yeah. That's in a nutshell. And that's what happened with the Mercedes Racing Point controversy. Basically, it was proven that Mercedes had given Racing Point their brake duct design. And that had happened in a way that at the time was legal, but the way Racing Point had dealt with that information and used it on the next year's car was not legal. So it'll be all about the detail of the regulations and the detail of the design. And as I say, this is a long way from over. And just a sort of wider point, this is one very small point, I should say, of a much bigger picture at the moment, with a widespread dissatisfaction on the part of a lot of people in Formula One at the way the FIA is conducting itself on a number of different levels. And we saw that in another way today with some very strong criticisms that Fernando Alonso made of the FIA, and which we're yet to hear the conclusion of their response.
The next hour of running from Barcelona. The sun is shining, not a single cloud in the sky as temperatures peak today at around 32 degrees. And for once, we have what could be a really thrilling battle for pole position here in Barcelona. It's got us all excited, even, dare I say it, Jack Nicholls.
Yeah, very excited. Why aren't I? I think I'm like too excited most of the time. I think that would be
Really?
the general criticism of me on air is that I'm too excited, you know?
You pitch it perfectly. You are as excited as one should be all the time. Alongside you today, the former F1 mechanic for the McLaren team, Mark Priestley. And Mark, I think the possibility of 6 drivers competing for pole position today is thrilling.
Yeah, it opens up a whole new dynamic in this championship. I mean, I don't want to speak too early. We have seen this sort of thing happen last time out in Miami, where a really strong showing on Friday didn't quite follow up with a similar performance on the Saturday, but we had a good showing at the end of yesterday in practice sessions for the Mercedes drivers, and they have done it again today. The signs are looking a lot more promising. So yeah, I hope we've got 6 drivers all getting in each other's way, all competing for that top spot this afternoon.
So far, Charles Leclerc has 3 pole positions to his name in Ferrari. It's 1 for Verstappen, Imola, and 1 for Sergio Perez in Saudi Arabia. And Jack, the form book here says pole is crucial.
Yeah, really challenging to overtake at Barcelona, and it's really important. And to be on that front row, and if you're suddenly ending up 4th or 5th quickest if you're Leclerc or Verstappen and your rivals on pole, you're going to have your work cut out to cut through the order.
So just to remind you of where we are in the championship, this is round 6. At the moment, Charles Leclerc leads the standings. He has a 19-point advantage over his nearest rival, Max Verstappen. However, Jack, fair to say Verstappen has momentum on his side at the moment.
He's won the last 2 Grand Prix. He's closing that gap down to Leclerc at the top of the championship. If he's finished a race this year, he's won it. And as you say, 19 points between them. It's unlikely that he'll take the lead of the championship this weekend, but it is possible because he's brought the gap down to less than a race win.
And Mark, this is Upgrade City this weekend. A lot of the teams have bought a huge upgrade to their car, none more so than Aston Martin this weekend, who have brought out a car that looks remarkably like the Red Bull. Let's not get too much into that because we've got a great qualifying on the way. But those upgrades, especially for Mercedes, seem to be proving really fundamental to their championship challenge.
Yeah, totally. For Mercedes, they seem to be the big winners out of all the upgrade packages that have been brought. If they've got a little bit better understanding of their car, that can only bode well. McLaren also brought a massive upgrade package, but they haven't yet, or we haven't yet seen any signs that that's giving them any major step in performance. So different outcomes up and down the grid, but a lot of money being spent, a lot of work being done, and some differences to cars which will only perhaps show their form as they start to get a better understanding of them and over the next couple of races.
Jack, just ahead of the cars going out into qualifying, what are the key things to look out for, do you think, in this first part?
Well, the Williams will be out because they didn't seem to have any pace at all, so I think they're going to struggle. Aside from that, it'll be quite interesting to see who's going to make it through into the second part of qualifying, because the big ones earlier today were Mick Schumacher and Pierre Gasly. They didn't get any running basically in free practice 3 earlier on today, so they are going to have their work cut out, really. And then could we see a Tsunoda, maybe a Joe, but he wasn't too far off Bottas's pace earlier on. Stroll in the Aston Martin was 5th slowest this morning, so there's a lot to look out for.
So excited. Let's cross over to you guys then as the chimes of We Will Rock You and a full grandstand clapping along with that half-day capacity crowd here in Barcelona in the sunshine, ready to watch this battle for pole position. First of all, though, let's have Q1.
So we will be getting underway with this 18-minute session in about 10 seconds' time. What can the Mercedes team do to try and get involved in that fight between Ferrari and Red Bull? And the light goes green at the end of the pit lane. We'll see who heads straight out. I imagine Schumacher and maybe Gasly and the Haas will be going out onto the track straight away. For those of you syncing up with the pictures, we've got 17 minutes and 45, 44, 43, 42 seconds left on the clock. Valtteri Bottas is sitting at the wheel of his Mercedes and of his Alfa Romeo, and his teammate Zhou Guanyu is the first to leave the pit lane. So Joe heads out onto the track on the soft tyres. Very warm, by the way, 34.5 degrees, the air temperature. Absolutely cooking in Barcelona, and track temperature up at 47.
It's gone up a little bit from this morning as well, and these small differences in temperature can genuinely make a big difference to how the tyres behave, how you need to operate your car to get those tyres to behave. So a bit of learning and understanding in these opening laps for everybody going out. Do you know, I think, Jack, one of the most interesting things about Mercedes joining this party potentially at the front is that Mercedes could also spoil the party for some of the others, because now if we have got 6 cars in the mix, if you're a Red Bull or a Ferrari, even if you do well and get one of your cars on the front row, your second driver could find themselves a lot further back down the order than they otherwise would have done.
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to be a real tricky part. If you end up 4th or 5th on the grid, then you're going to have your work cut out to cut through the field. Gasly has gone out on circuit, as has Yuki Tsunoda in the other AlphaTauri. Mick Schumacher still in the garage, Jenny.
Yes, now they've had to do a change of gearbox as a precaution after a fire that caught on the rear right of that car. The brake disc looked as if it had been through a microwave and bubbled up at the heat intensity. It was so badly destroyed. Mick, the good news, is in the car, but they're still working. They were confident that they would be able to get him out in this session. 16 minutes remain, so fingers crossed Schumacher can get out in that Haas and see what he can do and not have another barbecue.
It's a nice day for a barbecue.
Yeah.
It's a delightful day. It's it's very hot and sweaty, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, Smoky Gasly. He's having a barbecue coming from the back of the car. It's just kind of disappeared now, but just coming around the final sector, it was certainly not looking super healthy, was it? But it's all right down the straight.
Yeah, he's kept his foot in, so he hasn't lifted off. Hopefully it's just a bit of oil. They had that car apart, of course, after this morning when he did actually have a fire and a lot of smoke coming out the back. So hopefully it's just a bit of spilt oil or spilt fluids burning off as the exhaust gets up to temperature. But Gasly now, the first man really on a proper flying timed lap. Let's see what he can do. That's a 22.6 in the first sector. I think that's probably around mid-table, looking at the times from this morning. Through the middle sector he goes then. It looks steady, but nothing particularly impressive. The car looks under control, and given that he was limited in his track running through FP3, this will be as much of a learning experience as it is trying to get a banker lap in.
Comes up through the right-hander of turn 9 and then down towards turn 10, Pierre Gasly. Quickest lap time we've seen was actually yesterday in free practice 2. Charles Leclerc did a 1 minute 19.670 and he did a 0.7 earlier on today, and people were sort of running slower than they were in free practice, so track didn't grow a huge amount, or didn't get a huge amount quicker. Gasly coming around the final couple of corners. Joe does a 1 minute 21.065. Gasly comes through and does a 1 minute 22.0. So a bit of a sighter for Pierre Gasly. His teammate Yuki Tsunoda does a 1 minute 21.8, so 0.2 of a second quicker. Perez out on circuit and Nicholas Latifi. It's quite an early one from Perez.
Yeah, Perez, of course, had limited track running this weekend, and given that he missed out on FP1, handed his car over to Yuri Vips yesterday. So perhaps just a bit more data gathering, information gathering. From a driver perspective, you're just looking to fine-tune your lines through the corners. These cars very different and evolving at a rapid rate with all the upgrades that Jenny was talking about. So from a driver perspective, as much as it is from an engineering perspective, there are fine-tuning tweaks that you have to do to get the best out of it.
Nicholas Latifi coming through the first sector, going quickly compared to Joe, but Perez is going to be the first driver to set a really notable time. He's coming out of the final corner now and across the line. Verstappen's left the pits too, so both of the Red Bulls heading pretty much straight out. Sound you can hear is Perez hitting 198 miles an hour before getting onto the brakes, down to 100 miles an hour through the right-hander of turn 1, left-hander of 2, and then flat out through the right-hander of turn 3, and then he'll come through the first sector and will be 0.3 up on Zhou Guanyu in sector 1. Still only those 2 lap times, because Yuki Tsunoda's lap time got deleted for track limits at turn 3, so it's an unusual place to end up going wide, in all honesty, but I think that might be the first track limit deletion of the weekend. I don't remember seeing any others.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Perez Perez looking under control on his lap then. Now that can obviously mean that he's under control, but it could also mean he's not quite pushing the limits. We'll see as he comes down towards turn 10. DRS flap wide open. That's 0.6 faster than Zhou in the middle so far on his lap. That's the middle sector that he's just coming through now. So coming to complete the lap, the slower, twistier part of the circuit that really is tending to suit the Ferraris and less so the Red Bulls. Perez coming through now, the chicane of 14 and 15, negotiated his teammate, just posing a little bit of traffic for him, and at the final corner, let's see what lap time Perez can deliver, and that's a 1:20. That's a 1:20.4 for Sergio Perez. So fastest time of the session so far.
And then they ended up in a perfect little slipstream for Verstappen. So I wonder if that is something that is a little bit planned. We'll see whether that continues over the course of the session. Matt Q from Autosport says that Gasly's car was smoking from the rear quite a bit on the first few laps in free practice 1, apparently, when he was trackside. So perhaps it might just be a characteristic of the car at this point.
Perhaps.
Yeah. 11 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Verstappen in Q1. Verstappen coming into the left-hander of turn 7, then up the hill through turn 8. That's the sound you can hear as he comes into 9. Little lift on the way in, and then back on the power and through the middle sector. He is 0.3 up on Sergio Perez. Everybody else now leaving the pits, bar Ocon and Alonso in the Alpines, and Mick Schumacher, whose car is still getting repaired. So it's going to be a tough one for Mick Schumacher to advance through to the second part of qualifying, if he manages to get out on track at all. Verstappen bouncing over the curbs in the final sector and out across the line, and he now goes quickest on a 1:20.091, and that is 0.4 quicker than Sergio Perez and only 0.4 slower than the fastest lap time we've had all weekend. We're just getting a look at a bit of an unsafe release. Norris and Stroll.
He almost crashed into me.
Lance Stroll coming out of the pit garage and almost going into Lando Norris.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it's a decent banker lap for Verstappen. There's plenty of time still to find, at least half a second, I'd say, on top of that, if not more. But I wonder if that's important, because what could become an issue, particularly in this Q1 session, is traffic towards the end of the lap. When we start building up to the really meaningful fast laps, we've got a very slow section at the end of the lap before you get onto the beginning of the new lap and the start-finish straight, and that chicane at turns 14, 15 is often a place where we see people slowing right down, just trying to create themselves a gap, and if you are on a flyer, that can prove pretty tricky, so keep an eye out for traffic later on in this session.
Mick Schumacher is out of the pits, so both Haas cars joining the circuit. It's only Fernando Alonso who is remaining in the pit lane currently. Carlos Sainz now goes fastest on 1:19.892, 0.2 quicker than Max Verstappen. Here comes Charles Leclerc in the other Ferrari, and he goes faster, but only by 0.03 of a second. So Leclerc quickest, Sainz second, Jenny.
Yeah, and you do feel that Carlos Sainz really wants to raise his game this weekend. A lot of expectation on him. He's got a grandstand here, 3,500 people watching, on of his fans, and they desperately want to see him not the number 2 driver at Ferrari, but challenging for a championship. So let's see what he can do this weekend. He had a good result in Miami.
Here come the Mercs. Hamilton and Russell. Russell does the fastest first sector of anyone. Hamilton's going to be first across the line, comes out of the final corner. Bottas goes up to 4th quickest, and Hamilton now goes 4th quickest only. So it looked like he was going quicker than that for a while, but ends up 0.4 adrift of Leclerc. Russell now slots into 4th place, and he is 0.3 adrift of Leclerc. So the top 5 within 0.4 of a second, not quite there and in the mix, but only the first runs in Q1, and we actually saw Mercedes found quite a bit of pace on their second runs earlier today, so we'll see whether that happens. Fernando Alonso has now left the pits, so as you can tell by him coming around past the grandstands, but the order is Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, the top 5. Bottas, Perez, Norris, Magnussen, Zhou, the top 10. Then Vettel, Ricciardo, Albon, Stroll, Gasly and Latifi, the 16 drivers to have set the lap time. Ocon has not yet, Schumacher has not yet, Alonso has not yet, Tsunoda has, but it got deleted, and Alonso's just starting his lap now. Ocon completes his and goes 9th fastest, so ahead of Kevin Magnussen. The midfield is very mixed up in there, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And actually, even at the top, it's very tight if you take the Ferraris out of the picture. After those early first runs, the gap is between Ferrari and the rest, around 2 tenths, just over 2 tenths from the second Ferrari of Carlos Sainz down to Max Verstappen, and then beyond Verstappen down to, well, around Perez. There's almost nothing in it. So a real battle right at the very top. I still think there's more to come from the Red Bulls and potentially even from the Mercedes as well. So this is a proper fight in the hands.
Absolutely. Leclerc, Sainz and Verstappen back in the pit lane. The Mercedes are doing a cool-down lap currently. We'll see whether it becomes an in-lap. Sergio Perez it does become an in-lap for Hamilton and for George Russell. Perez through the first sector. And it's a 22-1 in the first sector. Good first sector for Sergio Perez. Only a few hundredths away from Charles Leclerc. Actually, only a few hundredths away from George Russell, I should say, in the first sector.
He's continuing to be quick as well through the middle sector, so this could well be a decent lap. He needs it because he's currently sitting down in P7, so he needs a good lap, and it's proving to be so far as he comes to the latter stages of that middle sector.
Sonoda jumps up the order into 12th place. Alonso now deposes him and he goes into 12th position, so that means the bottom 5 are Albon, Stroll, Gasly, Schumacher and Latifi. Perez now losing a bit of time in the middle sector. 37, he's backed off. He's fully backed off, so whether there was an error or he's just deciding to come back into the pits, but there's a bit more pace in there for Sergio Perez. Alonso then 12th fastest, nobody on a lap at the moment, so it's Ricciardo on the bubble in 15th after the first runs. The order is Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton the top 5, Bottas, Perez, Zhou, Norris, Ocon the top 10, Magnussen, Alonso, Tsunoda, Vettel, Ricciardo the top 15, and then eliminated as it stands, Albon, Stroll, Gasly, Schumacher, Latifi, Jenny.
Yeah, just thinking about Mercedes, I spent a little bit of time in the pit lane in between the end of the last session and qualifying, and they took off the DRS wings on both cars. Now, that may well be pretty standard for them. They too tend to take apart their cars and put them back together quite often. However, they did have a problem with Lewis Hamilton's DRS. It wasn't opening properly in free practice 3. They managed to resolve it, but I just wonder if they were just taking a little look at that, making sure the same wouldn't happen during qualifying. But certainly a lot of work going on in there. And at one point they had an angle grinder out and there were sparks flying everywhere off the right-hand side of the car, at the floor at the back. So, yeah, a lot of work goes on between FP3 and qualifying to make these cars the very fastest they can be.
It does always impress me, that attention to how it's not like you come in and park it up and then just go again in a couple of hours. It gets, and I mean, not completely stripped down, but really, really taken apart.
Yeah, you're always looking for the very tiniest details. You know, it almost seems ridiculous when you look at it in an isolated sense, but actually, of course, all those little things add up to something more significant, and when everybody's going to similar lengths of attention to detail, you have to do the same and perhaps even further. So yeah, it's an impressive industry.
4 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock. Tyre changes going on there at AlphaTauri for Pierre Gasly, who's currently in the drop zone, as is Mick Schumacher, both of whom with a little bit of a lack of running earlier on. It was a mistake at turn 7 for Sergio Perez. He got out of shape coming into the left-hander and had to go straight across and out the other side. The cheers you can hear are from, I think that's the Carlos Sainz grandstand, and a very nice, they've all got these very nice Ferrari caps with the little towels down the back of the necks, which I like, actually.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can get one.
Jenny might be able to find
Jenny,
one.
can I get one?
In the list of priorities right now, A, it's relatively low, and B, if I'm going to do it, I'm in the pit lane, I'm sizzling, I could probably do with it more than you, I'm guessing. It's very warm. Just get to... Well, that leaves out some of the team. I'm a team player.
No, Preece doesn't want one.
No I in team.
Preece doesn't want one.
That producer does.
No. No, he's actually giving a thumbs up. He does. Yeah,
see, I knew Joe would. 3,500 fans have gone into the Carlos Sainz grandstand. It's the CS55 grandstand, if you wanted to know. And they've been doing it for a few years now, and it's apparently the vibe in that grandstand is amazing.
I take your word for it. Less than 3 minutes to go. Cars heading out on circuit now. First to go out is Kevin Magnussen, and then Schumacher, Latifi, Stroll leaving the pit lane. They're all going to go out on a new set of soft tyres. Well, certainly the probably 6th downwards, I would say. The top 5 are probably safe. Bottas is heading out. To be honest, the top 8 and 9 are probably safe, but they'll want to go out anyway and get another run in. The Mercedes of George Russell just leaving the pit lane now on a used set of tyres on the softs, which is what the front runners will do. No need to use up a new set just in order to get through into the next part of qualifying, because it's looking comfortable for them.
Just saw an interesting corner analysis graphic pop up, which compared the sort of corner speeds of Verstappen versus Russell in the Mercedes. Only about a tenth between them in lap time as it stands right now, but interesting in that the Red Bull's able to go much deeper on the brakes, has much more stability and confidence on the brakes. Then mid-corner, the Mercedes is able to keep a little bit higher minimum speed, and then on exit they're very similar. We've talked all season about Mercedes sort of porpoising, this bouncing effect which hampers them on the way into corners, into the braking zone. Looking like at the moment, even though they've improved that dramatically for this weekend, they're still not quite as strong as the leading teams of Red Bull or Ferrari in the braking phase of a corner.
1 minute and 20 seconds to go. Go ahead, Jenny. Here's Russell's radio actually first.
So we're going to get tight on time. We're going to miss the flag.
Russell's going to miss the flight, but obviously they do mean flag. Who is Russell near on track? Albon might be a bit close, because I think Russell's ahead of Albon, so they've got a little bit of work to do. Schumacher starts a flying lap now. Latifi's coming through the first sector, but Alex Albon's in 16th currently, and there's 50 seconds left on the clock. He's halfway around the lap. A quick final sector. It's not impossible, but if everyone starts backing up through the final few corners, it could be tough. Schumacher does a personal best in the first sector, 600ths quicker than Daniel Ricciardo, who's currently the driver in 15th position.
Sergio Perez on a hot lap. We saw him on one earlier on before a mistake made him abort it, but he's on a flying lap. Decent first sector, decent middle sector. Oh, sorry, am I reading that wrong? Yeah, sorry, I'm completely making that up.
Oh, yeah, he's in the pits.
He's in the pits.
Yeah.
Totally made that up.
But he's having a great time in the pits. Here comes Schumacher now.
Very fast in the pits.
Through the middle sector. He's at 10th upon Ricciardo's. This is a reasonable lapping coming here from Schumacher. The checker flag is readied, and Russell does make it through on time. Does Albon make it through? Yes, he does. So everybody does manage to start their lap before the checkered flag comes out. So, at the moment, the drivers eliminated would be Albon, Stroll, Gasly, Schumacher, and Latifi. Latifi only goes up to 17th. He is out. Now, next across the line will be Schumacher. Good lap from Schumacher. Jumps up into 8th place. So he surely will be advancing through to the next part of qualifying. But there's a lot more laps to come in. Magnussen goes into 5th place, and that is quicker than his teammate Schumacher, actually by 0.4 of a second. Now the sound you can hear is Lance Stroll, the Canadian, 17. He's out. No improvement from Stroll. Albon isn't improving, but Ricciardo and Gasly are. Vettel is as well, so is Tsunoda. Fernando Alonso's not, so there's a chance Alonso could be in a bit of trouble. Vettel goes up into 13th. Alonso gets shuffled down to 14th. So this could be bad news at his home Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly comes through. When he goes up into 11th, Alonso is right on the bubble here with Tsunoda and Ricciardo improving behind. And through goes Ricciardo, up into 10th place. Vettel is going to be knocked out as well. Ocon's on the bubble because he's in the pit lane, but there aren't many more drivers to come across the line. In fact, there aren't any more drivers. It's only Alonso to come through, but he has already backed off. So Vettel out, Alonso out, Stroll out, Albon out, Latifi out.
And Alonso still pushing, although no, he is going into the pits. Really struggling through traffic. I don't know if that was why he ended up backing off, but yeah, disappointing. Two multiple world champions in the drop zone.
And why is everyone so concerned about Aston Martin's new car? 16th and 18th, both out in Q1.
The green Red Bull's not as quick as the blue Red Bull.
No, precisely. Precisely. Vettel's radio.
Okay, Sebastian, we're P16 at the moment, so we're out, I'm afraid.
You must be kidding.
No, mate, sorry.
Ocon just making it through on the bubble in 15th place. Norris only 14th. Then Tsunoda and Gasly in 12th and 13th. Well, I'll give you the whole order instead of reading it backwards. Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, Russell, Magnussen, the top 5. Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, Zhou and Ricciardo, the top 10. Schumacher, Tsunoda, Gasly, Norris and Ocon the 15 drivers that advance through to the next part of qualifying. The Williams both quite a long way off this, and have sort of appeared to be the whole of the weekend, actually, the Williams crew. So that's a shame for them at the back of the grid.
Yeah, disappointing.
Albon, did he improve? I don't think he didn't improve on his last lap, actually, Alex Albon. He was only 2 tenths away from Stroll, but he was 8 tenths away from making it through into the second part of qualifying. It was still Charles Leclerc who set the fastest time on a 1 minute 19.861. But
really solid lap for Magnussen, wasn't it, at the end there?
Yeah.
Bumped himself up into 5th position. That was that really came out of the blue, but a really solid lap, and will give him some confidence going into the next session.
He was quick in free practice 3, wasn't he, Kevin Magnussen? I think he ended. Yeah, I mean, it was 8th quickest, but he was up there quite early on with a strong lap, and only Norris was ahead of him. And we're just getting a replay of Fernando Alonso. I mean, he got, well, that's on the outlap, I think, Alonso. So he started the lap in very bad traffic, because I think he sent it past Hamilton and then tucked in behind Norris and then got going again. And that, I mean, that's not a dissimilar scenario. Do you remember Nikita Mazepin in Bahrain? In maybe his first Grand Prix, did something similar when everyone was running out of time, and he got absolutely slammed by everybody because of the driver's code and whatever.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I wonder who's going to be slamming Alonso for that. Probably nobody, but there we go. It's an interesting. I'm not, to be clear, defending Nikita Mazepin in any way, shape or form, but it's interesting what some drivers are allowed to get away with and what others aren't allowed to get away with. Just having a replay of Mick Schumacher coming through turn 3 and really low on that rear left, isn't he?
His car bottoming out all the way around the outside of that corner, gradually wearing away at the floor, sparks flying from beneath the left rear wheel. So yeah, running it very low.
5 drivers eliminated. Sebastian Vettel out. Fernando Alonso eliminated at his home Grand Prix. He'll start 17th on the grid. Lance Stroll, and then the 2 Williams of Alex Albon and Nicholas Latifi eliminated. Leclerc was fastest. Now we're moving into Q2 on Sports Extra. So now it's the Joe did a good lap as well, actually, less than a tenth away from Valtteri Bottas, and that was a good effort from Joe Guan Yu.
Yeah, I don't think we saw a clean lap from Perez during that session. He had pace in the car, we know that. We know Verstappen's quick. We saw some early promise from Perez, but he had to abort his lap after an accident. But they, in terms of Red Bull, they really need Perez to be up there alongside Verstappen, particularly when it comes to strategy and the race tomorrow.
And both Gasly and Schumacher, Jenny, after missing free practice earlier, or most of it, making it through to Q3, making it through to Q2.
And congratulations, I have to say, to Schumacher and his Haas team. They did a fantastic job of being able to mend that car after a rear right fire that destroyed the drum around the brake. There was a lot of damage to that. They changed the gearbox in between FP3 and qualifying, and hats off to them, and hats off to Schumacher for finding form. And I think questions were starting to be raised about the gap between Magnussen and Schumacher, which is always going to be a really tough battle for Schumacher. But I think he's found his feet certainly here at a track that he knows really well. Just on a side note, the grandstands here, we spoke about the Carlos Sainz grandstand already, but the main grandstand here is absolutely jam-packed. They've got a DJ on the second level, and everybody around her is like bouncing. You might be able to hear the music bleeding through on the system. It's just such a good vibe. I cannot wait for some of the races to come this season, because the vibe this year with COVID now being kind of almost it's not a thing of the past, but sometimes you think it is working in F1. The grandstands are full again. We're expecting over 300,000 people here this weekend. Netherlands is one of them. I just think it's going to be insane. Monza, Silverstone, it's going to go off the chart.
It'd be great.
It's good, isn't it? It's good signs for Formula One. It looked really busy yesterday as well. You know, it looked like the grandstands were packed, even for a practice session, which I don't think we could have always said in years gone by. So I think Formula One's in a healthy place right now.
So, no investigation necessary, or no further investigation into the Alonso-Norris-y mess at the end of that first part of qualifying. The clock is ticking for Q2, 14 minutes and 18, 17, 16 seconds left on the clock, and we'll see how many people get muddled up with traffic later on today, or later on in this second part of qualifying, because it was quite messy, and most of the drivers, it's going to be important to get a second lap in Q2, even maybe for the front runners potentially.
Yeah, I mean 5 less drivers in this session, so perhaps less potential for it, but still they're all going to be desperate for the same piece of tarmac as we come towards the closing stages of the next 13.5 minutes of Q2.
Everybody's still in the pit lane.
Yeah, temperature's incredibly hot, as Jenny said, 34.6 degrees air temperature, which is hotter than it was this morning, 46.7 track temperature.
It was hotter. That's hotter air temperature than Miami.
Is it?
I think so. I think Miami was like 32, 33 maybe. Obviously not the humidity in Barcelona, but I think it might be literally hotter. Jenny?
Yes, I can tell you it's literally hotter in the pit lane anyway, although less frizz, so definitely less humidity. A lot more red/pink hair, though, going on here than in Miami, because everybody's taken the leaf out of Alex Albon's book, the Williams driver who the front of his hair red, and he was dyeing other people's hair on Thursday red, and there are a few people walking around the paddock today with either red or pink hair.
What, just
in honour of the Albon?
Just regular people?
Well, I mean,
or like people in the team, or
another pit lane reporter for another of our well-known channels and / rivals may well have bright pink hair. Right?
Who?
Who stood next to me?
Ted.
Yeah.
Ted's got pink hair.
Ted has got bright, not even like subtle pink, bright pink hair. Anyway,
You're joking.
I'm not. Do you want me to take a picture? I can do. I did a poll just before this session began, by the way, to ask.
Well, that's what Leclerc's aiming for.
Exactly. Well, that's what they're all aiming for, Jack. Who would nail qualifying as first out of the blocks is Lewis Hamilton in his Mercedes. 54% said Ferrari. George Russell goes past. 27% with Mercedes and 19% Red Bull. So there we go.
There we go. Yeah, interesting.
Well, as you can hear, everybody is heading out onto the track now. I'm just trying to find... I can't find any pictures on social media of Ted's hair.
Interestingly, in Q2, of course, what we have got different for this year is well, we no longer have the rule that you have to start the race on the tyres that you qualify or set your fastest lap in Q2. So everybody going out on the fastest, the softest, the red banded tyre, hoping to get the best they physically can out of each of these cars. You've now got both Ferraris rolling down the pit lane towards the racetrack as well. The McLarens also heading out, so everybody just starting to emerge. It's like it always is. It just takes one person to break cover, and the rest all duly follow.
Yeah, absolutely. So 11 minutes on the clock, and everybody leaving the pits. It's just Leclerc and Verstappen yet to head out. Jenny?
Yeah, it looks to me like most of them are going out 2 by 2. Certainly Verstappen's just going out. I think he's on a used set of tyres. It looked like both of the Mercedes are on used soft tyres as well. And I just wonder if it is worth using some sort of tow and slipstream around here, or if it's not worth it. What do you reckon?
I mean, I would suggest broadly not. But
there's only one place, isn't
there?
There's only the start-finish straight where it could possibly be of any benefit. And it is just so tricky, particularly with the amount of traffic that you've got. It's a risk to try and set it up, because if it goes wrong, you can not only compromise one of your drivers, but you could also compromise the guy who's trying to set up the tow. So it is a risk, but of course, if you do get it right, if you can manage to pull it off, there is definitely lap time available to those who can do it.
Yeah. Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen, all going out on used tyres. Looks like Russell has gone out on a new set of tyres, and as has Lewis Hamilton. So the Mercedes on new tyres, the other front runners, the Red Bulls and the Ferraris, on used soft tyres. Everybody out on circuit now. And Russell and Hamilton are the two that are starting their flying laps. In the first sector, it is Russell, who is quicker than Hamilton by a smidge over a tenth of a second. Hamilton is now climbing the hill through turns 7 and 8. Through the right-hander at the top. And then down towards the left-hander of turn 10 through the middle sector. Hamilton does a 29.7. George Russell comes through the middle sector and pretty much matches Hamilton. So they are pretty much neck and neck, effectively, after the first 2 sectors. And they are... Well, Hamilton is going to be the first driver to set a lap time in this second part of qualifying. Leclerc and Verstappen are just starting their flying laps now. Quite a big slide for Hamilton coming out of turn 15, got up on the sausage, and as a result, it's a 1 minute 19.794 for Hamilton. George Russell comes through now, and he goes quicker by 0.3 of a second, which was pretty much all in the final sector there, George Russell. So 8.5 minutes to go. Russell, Hamilton, now Schumacher in third position. Everybody else on their laps, and those times will be coming in a moment. All about getting in the top 10 in this second part of qualifying.
I'll tell you what, those laps from Mercedes are genuine. They are good laps. I mean, good lap from Russell. Hamilton obviously lost a lot of time in the last sector, but up until that point, that car's looking quick. So a 19.4, I think, is the fastest lap we've seen all weekend.
Yeah.
So impressive stuff from Mercedes when it matters.
Magnussen goes up into third place, a second away from George Russell, but crucially quicker than both of the McLarens. Both Hasses quicker than both McLarens. Perez now slots into third position. The Ferraris are not going quicker than the Mercedes at the moment, but they are on used soft tyres, so how close can they get? Bottas goes up into fourth position. Sainz comes out of the final corner and across the line, and it is fifth for Carlos Sainz. Here comes Charles Leclerc. It's fourth for Charles Leclerc, and then Max Verstappen, the last to come across the line on his used set of tyres. And it's sixth for Max Verstappen.
Look at that.
So... not representative, because the Red Bulls on the new on the old tyres, Ferrari on old tyres, Mercedes on new tyres.
But is there half a second in a set of new tyres?
Exactly, it's definitely competitive. There's no doubt about that. The Mercedes lap times.
It's going to be close.
Jenny?
Yeah, a huge amount of work's gone on that Mercedes to try and find a path that they want to take when it comes to the development of this car. They've always said they know it's a good car. It was just getting on top of it to unlock its potential. That's what they struggled with. Porpoising, well, the upgrades seem to have at least had some effect on that. The car not porpoising as much as it was before. And they had a filming day in between Miami and this race. They did 100 kilometres. George Russell was in the seat, and they tried all sorts of variations of, I believe, new floors. They tried the adapted front wing, which has a longer kind of straight fin on it. They've tried new rear wings. So a lot of resources gone into this car, and I think the filming day has really helped them and brought what they think is a real step forward, but also they're really pleased because of the direction now is settled upon. So I think filming days aren't really meant to be test days, but it's certainly proved beneficial for them.
Yeah, interesting stuff. 6 minutes to go. Kevin Magnussen has DRS issues, I believe, so wasn't able to use it on that lap that he did. He's fractionally quicker, 7 thousandths quicker than Mick Schumacher, but both Hasses inside the top 10 is very encouraging for them. Norris in 10th, Ricciardo 11th. Eliminated would be Ricciardo, Ocon, Joe, Tsunoda and Gasly. I would also hypothesize that maybe the AlphaTauris are on a used set of tyres for that run, because of the pace deficit.
The next one is obviously the one that is really going to matter. So everybody now back into the garage. A few more checks, a little bit of feedback from the driver, any tiny final tweaks. They can't do anything mechanical to the car other than a little tweak of front wing if necessary, but they can change systems, they can change settings on the steering wheel, and just look at data traces, understand where they might be losing or gaining a tiny bit of time. And it really is those tiny fractions that they're searching for at this stage before they all bolt the brand new set of sticky tyres on and go for one last flying lap.
Joe, Tsunoda, Gasly were the three drivers in the other part, in the lower reaches, that had a used set of soft tyres on, so that explains their gap to the top 10. So 4 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. The order: Russell, Hamilton on new tyres, Perez, Leclerc in 3rd and 4th on old tyres, Bottas 5th on new tyres, Verstappen 6th, Sainz 7th on old tyres, Magnussen, Schumacher, Norris, the rest of the top 10 on new tyres. Same is true of Ricciardo and Ocon 11th and 12th, and then old tyres for Zhou, Tsunoda and Gasly, but that'll all become moot somewhat when everybody, as Mark says, puts the tyres on and heads back out. The former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley with myself, Jack Nichols and Jenny Gow, bringing you coverage of the qualifying session ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix, which you can hear tomorrow afternoon on BBC Radio 5 Live, I think. If not, then the BBC Sport website and wherever you usually listen.
And Pierre, we had a message for all the drivers. We are not allowed to open the gap in the pit exits like this anymore.
We're not allowed to open the gap in the pit exit like this anymore. So I think we saw it predominantly at Zandvoort last year, where drivers would queue up at the end of the pit lane and sort of just stagger themselves there at the end of the pit. I'm sure there's a comparison I can make, and I can't quite work out what it is. Like on a water slide, right? The first person goes out, and then you have to wait like a minute. So before you go, otherwise you'll wipe them out.
Yeah, and this is the part of qualifying where that's really going to be an issue. We've talked about traffic already, but this is it. This is where it's going to matter, because everybody now filing out of the pit lane, they're going to have to warm their tyres up, prepare them on this out lap. They've got just under 3 minutes to go, so they'll find it easy to get round, but that's a very careful out lap where they do a set procedure, trying to do burnouts, trying to weave, just get the temperatures all balanced in that right window that they need them. And then, of course, they've got to find a gap as they come through the latter part of this lap before they go onto their flying lap, and that is where the traffic could become an issue. People bunching up, slowing down, trying to create a gap in front as they come through the final couple of corners. And if you're on a bit of a hurry up, if you don't want to get caught out and miss the checkered flag falling, you need to find your way through that. It's messy, it can be dangerous, and it can definitely cost you big when it comes to setting a lap time.
I think there is plenty of time, though, because Perez is the last driver on track, and he's just coming through the first section. We've still got 2 minutes to go, so he's got 2 minutes to do a bit of the lap that takes 1 minute.
We should be okay.
So I think we'll be all right. So at the moment, Ricciardo, Ocon, Zhou, Tsunoda and Gasly would be the 5 drivers eliminated. Norris is on the bubble in 10th place. The 2 Hasses are in there, Magnussen 8th, Schumacher 9th. And then you've got sort of the top 7, as it were, the 3 big teams and Valtteri Bottas. And this is going to be and the Mercedes staying in the pits. So tyre-wise, they haven't used... I was not concerned, but curious as to why they were basically using an extra set of new tyres compared to the rest of the front runners, but they're not. They've decided to just do their new set now, and now all the others are out on a new set, and they are chilling in the pits.
Well, and I think that's probably okay, even though Lewis Hamilton lost a huge amount of time. He's 3 tenths behind his teammate. I think the gap behind Mercedes, and if we take the top 6 drivers, I think the gap behind them is sufficient enough that they'll still be safe. So, yeah, an air of confidence about Mercedes, which we haven't been able to say for a while.
Leclerc in the pits as well, and so he went out on used tyres, so he's happy enough that lap time will see him through. He's done a 19.9. That's only half a second to 10th place. I'm sure Ferrari will think it'll be fine. Carlos Sainz is improving. Actually, no one else is really improving on this lap so far. Tsunoda and Gasly are in the Alpha Tauris. So is Sainz, but that's about it. Ocon's finding a bit of time now in the middle sector, but Schumacher is 8 tenths of a second away from George Russell after the first 2 sectors. So he's not finding much time. Kevin Magnussen is now a little bit. So is Max Verstappen, who's just come through the first sector. Sound you can hear is Carlos Sainz coming out of the final corner in the Ferrari, and he goes quickest now on a new set of tyres. A 1 minute 19.453, less than 2 hundredths quicker than than George Russell. Schumacher across the line does not improve, so he's in 9th place and might be in a bit of trouble. Verstappen is going quickly. Bottas across the line remains in 6th place. At the moment, Gasly only goes 12th. Yuki Tsunoda comes across the line and out-qualifies Pierre Gasly. 12th now for Tsunoda. Ricciardo coming through the final few corners. Magnussen goes up into 4th place, so he's going to be safe. Norris needs to find an improvement. Schumacher could be in a bit of trouble, but again, there's not huge lap times coming in from behind. Ricciardo jumps up into 9th place now with a good lap in the McLaren. The other McLaren of Lando Norris dumps Schumacher out of Q2. So Norris up into 7th, Ricciardo's on the bubble, but the only man that can stop him is Esteban Ocon, who is not going very quickly at all. So I think we will have Schumacher in 11th, Ocon 12th, Tsunoda 13th, 14th for Pierre Gasly, and 15th for Zhou Guanyu.
Look at that lap from Verstappen. 19.2 on the fresh tyres with the Red Bull. That again breaks the record for this weekend. Fastest lap we've seen in the entire weekend, and that's 0.2 quicker than Sainz on the fresh tyres in his Ferrari at the same time on track. So that's a bit of an eye-opening warning shot from Red Bull.
Yeah, but Leclerc has that new set of soft tyres that he can use in the race, whereas Max Verstappen used his new set of tyres that they would have sort of allocated for this session. So that could be something come tomorrow. Although it didn't look like it was nice to be on the soft tyre yesterday.
Lando, I'm sorry, we had our lap time deleted.
Oh no.
So that puts us out in P11, I'm afraid.
Track limits at turn 12 for Norris. Was that the
Wow, we didn't see that on our screens.
Turn 12,
but
that's
what a blow.
That's the sort of long looping right-hander just before the fiddly chicaney bit.
Okay, sorry for the car, Pierre.
Yeah, honestly, I've tried.
Sorry for the car, say the team to Pierre Gasly. Norris 11th, then eliminated. So Schumacher gets back in because of that lap time deletion for Norris. So Norris will be 11th, Ocon 12th, Tsunoda 13th, Gasly 14th, Zhou in 15th position. The top 10, the order was Verstappen, Sainz, Russell, Hamilton, Magnussen, the top 5, Perez, Leclerc, Bottas, Ricciardo, Schumacher, the top 10.
So the big worry for Red Bull will be that, although they have a very quick car in the hands of Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez seeming to struggle in comparison. 0.6 off his teammate in that session. Hasn't yet felt or looked as comfortable or anywhere near as comfortable as Verstappen. And when it comes to the race, having two cars in this fight is a massive strategic advantage. Both Ferraris look very close to each other. Both Mercedes look very close to each other. So I think Verstappen needs his teammate a lot closer when it comes to the final session in a few moments.
Jenny.
Yeah, Ricciardo doing well, out qualifying his teammate for the first time this season, getting into Q3. He needed that.
Yeah, it's been a good result that for Ricciardo. I mean, it's one of those where he sort of didn't out-qualify him because Norris set a quicker lap time, but he did go over the confines of the track, so he didn't set the lap time. But you know what I mean with that particular caveat. And
yeah, it's disappointing for McLaren to have one of their cars drop out in Q2 after managing or seemingly managing to get both in. And we're seeing the replay now of Norris. Oof. I mean, it was fractional. He just stepped over the line. I mean, it's one of those that VAR would have taken ages to decipher. There was nothing in it, but
it's also one of those where there's gravel on the exit. So like, what? It doesn't matter. There's gravel there, man. Yeah, you're going to monitor track limits where there's gravel.
That's
anyway.
True. There you go. Rules is rules.
No, and to be fair, actually, I'm being all but
yeah, we've been asking for years to have the white line.
Consistent track limits, just have it as the white line, and it is. So that's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. So Norris eliminated, Ocon, Tsunoda, Gasly, and Zhou all eliminated as well. Didn't Norris get done from a really good qualifying in 2020 in Imola? For track limits at Piratella.
You've got a better memory than I have.
He was going to be like front row, but just went wide at Piratella maybe in Imola in 2020. But I could be wrong on that one. Or someone did. I'm sure someone went a bit wide at Piratella once. Okay. Andrew Benson thinks it was Lando. So thank you.
There you go.
Okay. Exactly. Qualifying 3 coming up. Verstappen, Sainz, Russell, Hamilton, Magnussen, Perez, Leclerc, Bottas, Ricciardo, Schumacher will be the 10 drivers Jenny, where's it going?
Oh, don't. I mean, the joy of this is we don't know, and that really is a joy, because for so many years we've been able to call it pretty much as Hamilton, especially at this track. Remember, he's won the last 5 races here, so to not know which way it's going to go is a delight. But I have to say as well, congrats to Haas. It's the first time they've had both of their cars into the final part of qualifying since, I'll just tell you, Brazil 2019. Which
were you not going to tell us?
I was going to make you guess.
Oh,
that's
no, Brazil 2019
Great. Oh, you knew that all along.
Magnussen and Grosjean.
Yeah. And
P7 and 9. I don't actually know that. That was a guess.
Oh, I wish you'd nailed that now. Now I feel like you've undervalued yourself. That is disappointing. I was just going to say that, I think everybody here is totally psyched about this qualifying session. I've got friends at home messaging me going, oh, this is so dramatic, this is so amazing. Which way do you think it's going to go?
8th and 10th it was. Grosjean 8th, Magnussen 10th on the grid.
I mean, I can't call it either, Jenny. I think that is what is most exciting about this. I think if you look at the picture at the end of Q2, just looking at the top 6 or 7, it's kind of blurred, isn't it? It's not where we actually expect them to sit at the end of Q3. So I don't know which way it's going to go. I think that lap from Verstappen has opened my eyes a little bit to their performance, but I wonder if there's still a lot more to come from Leclerc.
Well, that was Verstappen's second run on fresh tyres, and Leclerc didn't do that, and the Mercedes didn't do that. So really, the only comparison is Carlos Sainz, and that was a like for like, and Verstappen was 0.2 quicker. Look, if you're me, which I am, I'm betting Leclerc goes 0.2 quicker than Sainz, potentially, and so I think it's going to be very. Andrew Benson's given his answer. He's given an actual answer. He says Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Russell, Hamilton. That's Benny's bets. Those are Benny's bets. That's got to be a new feature. We need to get a new jingle, Benny's bets.
Maybe not the wording of Benny's bets, but something like that.
Oh yeah, because
something
of the
similar?
BBC and
one of those things.
But it's alliteration.
Well, I know, but
Benny's well thought through idea of what might happen isn't quite as catchy.
Tell you what, it's good. I like it. I'm just thinking, when it comes to these moments, this is a really high pressure situation. We know qualifying is the biggest pressure point of the weekend. They've got to nail it. They've got to go the fastest they'll go all weekend. When it comes to pressure, which of these 6 men can withhold it, can put up with it, can drink it in and let it fuel them the most? Because these are 3 incredibly talented drivers, aren't they? When you look at them, Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Russell, Hamilton, even Perez. Discount him, I think. I don't know why Benny did, but he didn't add him into that mix. But that is, I mean, each on their day, if they can hold their nerve, could get pole position, I think.
Yeah. For me, Verstappen is I don't think Verstappen feels pressure. I genuinely don't think he...
Equally, have we ever seen Hamilton buckle under pressure? I can't remember the last time that happened. I think that experience has to count for a lot. I don't know if he's quite got the car capable today of really putting it on the very front row, but we'll see. I think it's really interesting for that very reason. We simply don't know as they all emerge from the pits.
So, 11 minutes and 7 seconds on the clock. Final part of qualifying. They'll go out, do a lap, come back in, go out, do a lap, come back in. And those will be the 2 runs that will decide pole position. The 2 Ferraris very close to one another on the way out of the pit lane. And Carlos Sainz looking for his first career pole position in Formula 1.
Yes,
no? Yeah,
that is true. Yeah, it's got to happen at some point soon, hasn't it? He's got the car this year finally. He's just had a run of bad luck, and let's not beat around the bush. A few unforced errors too. Can he deliver in front of a home crowd? He leads them round with his teammate Leclerc tucked in behind, just creating themselves a gap as they warm their tyres up, heading round to the one that matters.
And as far as pole positions have gone this season, 3 for Leclerc. Bahrain, Australia and Miami. intermittent to that was pole for Perez in Saudi Arabia and pole for Verstappen in Imola. 10 minutes to go.
If there is a tow to be had, and if it is valuable, it could well be Leclerc that's the obvious recipient of that, being tucked in behind his teammate. The Mercedes are split. Haven't seen where the Red Bulls are on circuit yet. Don't think they're particularly close to each other. So it's the two Ferraris. I'm not sure that's necessarily what they're going for, but it is Leclerc that is currently tucked in behind the sister Ferrari.
Lewis Hamilton has had pole position in Barcelona for 4 of the last 5 seasons, and he stamps on the brakes. He sent that into turn 1. That was so quick and late on the brakes. That was remarkable from Hamilton. I don't know, it was one of those that really visually stood out. Anyway, comes through the first sector, does a 22.0, which isn't the fastest first sector that we have seen so far this weekend. Magnussen is through the first sector, he's half a second slower, Schumacher 8/10 slower, but they might be on old tyres actually. But Hamilton is quicker than Sainz in sector 1. He's now coming through the left-hander of 7, the right-hander of 8, and up the hill into the little lift of turn 9. Through the right-hander, and then we'll get his middle sector split in a moment. A 29.6 is a good middle sector, and Hamilton sets the fastest middle sector of the session so far.
This is a good lap. Leclerc couldn't match Hamilton in the first sector either, so Lewis Hamilton really on a flyer. The first 2 sectors he's nailed. Can he do it in this final, slower, twistier sector 3 and get the lap time that matters?
Russell is quicker than Hamilton in sector 1, but Verstappen is quicker than a lot of them. Hamilton now coming out of the final corner. He will be the first driver to set a benchmark time. Cuts the timing beam and it's a 1 minute 19.664. So it's slower than Verstappen managed earlier on by 0.4 of a second. Now here comes Charles Leclerc. Carlos Sainz is going to be the first to cut the timing beam, and he goes 0.2 quicker than Hamilton. Sainz does a 19.4 and goes to the top, and Leclerc's out of spin. Leclerc's out of spin. He gets going again. He's flat spotted all his tyres. He won't set a lap time.
And that was a fast one as well. He was on a flyer, potentially level with his teammate, possibly a bit quicker.
Russell goes ahead of Hamilton. Verstappen is not setting the world alight here. He's coming into the final few corners. Now on the power, he set the fastest first sector of anyone. Perez gets ahead of the Mercedes, and Verstappen goes quicker. He finds 0.4 in that final sector pretty much.
How did he do that?
Huge final sector for Max Verstappen, and he is on provisional pole position for the Spanish Grand Prix. A 1 minute 19.073, 0.3 ahead of Sainz, 0.4 ahead of Perez, half a second ahead of Russell and Hamilton. Bottas 6th, Ricciardo 7th, 8th for Magnussen, 9th for Schumacher. We're just seeing what happened here to Leclerc coming into 14 and 15, and the back end just went around in the slow speed left-hander.
Yeah. Wow.
Haven't seen a spin like that all weekend really, but turned Leclerc around
like a pendulum. These cars are so heavy, and once you lose it, it's very difficult to hang on to it. Jenny.
Pretty fortunate with the timing of that. I tell you what, I mean, not fortunate in that he spun at the end, so didn't get a lap time, but it was right by pit entry, so he was able to just turn the car, get into pit entry, go straight into the garage, team having a look at the car, and they'll send him back out again. Obviously, a crucial moment. Will that be a crucial moment when it comes to this championship? That's the question.
Well, the big danger here for Leclerc is a red flag, a yellow flag, some kind of thing like that on this second run, and that's the big danger. If he starts 10th on the grid, then he is in a world of pain for tomorrow.
I mean, Jenny, you talked about pressure. The pressure that's now on Charles Leclerc. He's now only got one run where he can, and he has to deliver. I mean, that really is pressure. You get a little bit of breathing space in Q2, given that most people will always go for 2 runs. So you get a banker lap, and then you go for the big one. Charles Leclerc only now with 1 opportunity to make it count.
That's why I wonder if, when I said about it being a pressure moment and who can withstand that pressure, spinning when you're trying to set your fast time against these other 5 drivers is so crucial. And as you say, it would take very much now for Leclerc to find himself right up against it and not being able to start within that top 4, which is absolutely crucial at a racetrack like this. We're not going to get rain tomorrow. They're going to have to make the most of the situation situation, and the dash down to turn one, whilst it's long, is possibly your only chance, apart from strategy, of actually getting ahead of the people in front of you.
It's maybe not the first time we've seen Leclerc buckle under pressure, is it? I mean, Imola chasing down Verstappen.
Definitely,
yeah.
There's a lot
the
of
end
occasions.
Of the race. I mean, that really was a pressure situation where he was fighting to get back on terms with Verstappen and did a similar thing, crashed over curbs and spun the car. So that's something that comes with experience, and perhaps Charles Leclerc still working towards that.
Well, 4 minutes and 35 seconds on the clock. The order: Verstappen, Sainz, Perez, Russell, Hamilton, the top five. Bottas, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Schumacher, and Leclerc in 10th place at the moment. The championship leader spinning on his first lap, his first run in the final part of qualifying. Mattia Binotto, the team principal of Ferrari, leans forward on his chair, looks pensive as he looks back over towards the Ferrari garage. He's sitting on the pit wall over the opposite end. And it's a good question from Tony, actually. I don't think anyone's lap was compromised because of Leclerc's spin. Maybe Russell was behind Leclerc, but he sort of got going again quite quickly. I'm sure there might have been a yellow flag out, but it wasn't. I don't think it was a particularly notable one. But whatever, they all get another go now, and Leclerc is actually heading out now. 3.5 minutes to go. Jenny.
Yeah, he's definitely first out on track. New tyres for him, followed by Sainz, and then it's Lewis Hamilton, followed by Sergio Perez, who's going out in the as they trundle past me. I wonder if anything was needed to be said to Leclerc, if anyone could say anything to just rally him and make sure he feels a little bit loved in that car. This moment, the pressure on these drivers, it's outstanding, stunning.
The championship leader. It's all or nothing now on this lap for Leclerc, and going out early, it's not absolutely ideal, and you can see why he's doing it, so that he's first on track and he doesn't run into a yellow flag or a red flag or whatever. Thank you, Steve. We've got 2 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock. The drivers have done one lap already, and now they're just on track to do their final attempt at taking pole position. Max Verstappen at the moment is on provisional pole position. Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari is second. Sergio Perez is third in the Red Bull. The two Mercedes of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton are fourth and fifth. Valtteri Bottas is sixth in the Aston Martin. Daniel Ricciardo, Kevin Magnussen and Mick Schumacher are the top nine. The championship leader, Charles Leclerc, is 10th at the moment because he made a mistake and spun on his first qualifying lap. So he, Mark Priestley, has to get the job done on this lap. It's all or nothing if he wants to be at the top.
Yeah, 2 minutes to go. He'll only get this one shot. He's come out of the pits on a brand new set of tyres, so this is everything. He's got every opportunity here, but the pressure is enormous. And he's one of the first, or in fact he will be the first, to set a lap time. So yeah, all eyes on Leclerc right now.
Leclerc across the line then, Jenny, down towards turn one.
Yeah, worth remembering that 28 of the last 31 races have been won from the front row and 71% from pole. So the battle right now is so crucial.
Leclerc starts his lap, comes through the quick right-hander at turn one, left at two, right again at three, and we'll see how he's doing compared to Max Verstappen in the first third of the lap. The answer is he's only 200ths away. That's a reasonable start to the lap for Charles Leclerc. Sainz is starting his flying lap now, coming through the first few corners. Hamilton across the line to see what he can do. The Mercedes looking much improved this weekend, but still a little bit of a drift of the front runners. Carlos Sainz is 2/10 down on Verstappen in sector one, so he's not actually flying the home hero. Leclerc is. He's now coming through the middle part of the lap, and compared to Max Verstappen, 2/3 of the way around, he is up by a quarter of a second.
Look at that.
Charles Leclerc is putting in a huge lap here, but Verstappen is just starting his own lap, coming down towards the first corner.
Wow, coming towards the end of the lap then, Charles Leclerc, fastest of anybody in the middle sector, just closing out the last few tight and twisty corners of 14 and 15, the chicane, where he spun just a few moments earlier on. Here's Verstappen.
They had no power.
Verstappen saying he has no power, he's got a problem with the car, and Leclerc hits pole by 0.3 of a second, a 1:18.750. Can anybody out there stop him? Carlos Sainz, the Spaniard at his home Grand Prix, comes through the final turn. he can't beat his teammate, and he can't beat Verstappen. Verstappen isn't improving. Verstappen will not take pole position for the Spanish Grand Prix. It's only up to the Mercedes now, and Hamilton is not close enough. Russell is a quarter of a second away after the middle sector. Hamilton goes 5th. Russell here might be able to get up onto the front 2 rows of the grid. Kevin Magnussen goes 7th. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull comes across the line, and he remains in 4th position. So the only driver now that can stop Charles Leclerc is George Russell in the Mercedes. He's surely going to be too far away, but it might be his best qualifying performance of the season. Russell across the line. It's 4th for the Mercedes driver. Charles Leclerc, the championship leader, made a huge mistake at the start of qualifying, but he has rectified it with a huge lap to take pole for the Spanish Grand Prix tomorrow afternoon. Max Verstappen, with reliability problems once again by the sounds of it, will be 2nd on the grid, doesn't even get to do a second lap. 3rd on the grid, Carlos Sainz. 4th for George Russell. And that is the celebrations for Charles Leclerc on the radio. He'll start at the front of the Grand Prix tomorrow, Steve. So Perez 5th, Hamilton 6th, Bottas 7th, Magnussen 8th, 9th for Ricciardo, 10th for Mick Schumacher. Fair play, Leclerc.
I mean, unbelievable. We talked about the pressure he was under, but didn't he just deliver? What a lap that was. We haven't seen anybody dip below the 119s, and there he goes, puts in a 118.7. An absolutely stonking lap. Verstappen, well, it was all about that first run, wasn't it? Wasn't it lucky that he got that first run in?
The car just died coming through turn 3.
That's the sound you're hearing of Verstappen's onboard as his car died coming through turn 3. He didn't lose all the electrics. The dashboard on his steering wheel still illuminated, but he certainly lost power coming from that power unit and drive to the rear wheels of that car. So frustrating. More big reliability questions over at Red Bull.
Absolutely. He's retired from 2 Grand Prix so far this season. Then there was the gearbox issue in Miami as well. More encouraging for Mercedes, but ultimately 6/10 away, really.
I think Mercedes were on the cusp, really were so close. I think Russell was fastest of anybody in the first sector, nailed that one, but he lost so much in the second sector, he really wasn't able to recover from that. But I still think there's huge potential in that Mercedes car, and they almost unlocked it. We haven't been able to say that for such a long period of time. So, look, they're getting better, they're moving towards the front, and the front 2 teams will have to start looking over their shoulder at the silver arrows coming up from behind.
Leclerc waves to the crowd. How far away? He was a 10th away in the end, Carlos Sainz, from nicking the front row of the grid. So it will be Leclerc and Verstappen on the front row. Jenny?
Yeah, just thinking at that moment when Leclerc managed to hold his nerve. We spoke about this being a pressure point, and I just wonder as well, just seeing Jos Verstappen around the back of the Red Bull garage, reliability issue, could that interfere with the starting position tomorrow for Max Verstappen? Is due to start P2. Let's see if they have a problem with that car that could be problematic when it comes to their starting grid position.
It seemed like he kind of got it going again, didn't it? It looked like power was lost.
Made it round to the grid, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So he's not lost everything.
But it felt like he lost power and then downshifted a couple of times, and then it sort of came back. But it's a very fair point to raise, because the cars are in parc fermé conditions now, so you can't change them before the race tomorrow.
No, but the team will have been looking at that data, and if there was any concern that it was something more seriously mechanical, they wouldn't have allowed him to continue on the lap and bring it to the grid. They'd have brought him straight into the pit lane and told him to box. So I think there's probably some encouragement from that maybe it was a software issue, maybe it was a reset, and that got things going again. But so hopefully nothing that's going to really interrupt this wonderful battle we have at the front tomorrow.
So Carlos Sainz will be 3rd on the grid for Ferrari. 2nd on the grid will be Max Verstappen for Red Bull, and on pole position will be Charles Leclerc. We're going to hear from the top 3 in a moment. We'll also then do the Checkered Flag podcast, which you'll be able to download later on this evening. But we will start off by hearing from the pole sitter Charles Leclerc, who is speaking down on the front of the grid in Barcelona to Naomi Schiff.
Charles, congratulations. Fantastic atmosphere we have here in Barcelona, and you're on pole position here for the first time. How do you feel?
I feel good. It was a very, very difficult session. I mean, especially in Q3, because I did a mistake in the first run of Q3, and and then obviously I only had one lap, but it went extremely well. I had a bit of moments on my lap, but at the end made it stick, and very, very happy with pole position. It was a very good lap, and the car was amazing too. So yeah, very happy.
Well, statistically, this track is known to be a track that is won from pole position, so you're in the best position tomorrow to win this race. Will that put you in a strong position for tomorrow's results?
I am in a strong position to start the race, but we've been struggling with tyres in the last two races compared to Red Bull. So Max is just behind, and if we don't manage those tyres well, we will lose that win. So we need to get on top of it and do a good job tomorrow with tyre management.
Well, you've got Carlos right behind you on the grid, so do you think you can put together a team effort to keep the Red Bulls behind you?
Yes, I really, really hope so. I hope we can do a 1-2 together with Carlos. It will be great for the team, and yeah, we'll give it all.
Fantastic. Good luck. Congratulations. It's not the result you would have wanted. We heard that you struggled with some power issues. Did that cost you the pole position today?
I mean, it's always difficult to tell, but yeah, I couldn't do my final run. Either the DRS didn't open or I just lost power. So it's a bit of a shame, but I think overall, to be on the front row for us here, looking at the whole weekend so far, I think it was a good achievement. But of course, I would have liked to go for that final run.
We just heard from Charles that they are struggling a little bit with their tyre degradation. Do you think that that's something you will have an upper hand on them tomorrow?
Last two races we seem pretty decent on the tyres. Of course, tomorrow again will be very hot, very warm. This track will be quite tough to pass, but let's see. Hopefully, of course, our car will be again a bit kinder on the tyres, but a bit difficult to tell at the moment.
Good luck tomorrow. Carlos, the crowd making a lot of noise for you here. Congratulations, third today in front of your home crowd. How do you feel?
Yeah, it's been a tough weekend so far. The conditions haven't been the easiest with the heat, with the wind, but today we managed to put a decent lap that allows us to fight from there tomorrow. I think the key will be the start, the tyre management, see if we can get a good start and go from there. But it's a decent position to start.
Small mistake at the beginning of the session. Do you think that cost you a little bit today, and do you think you'll be able to fight back in tomorrow's race?
Yeah, I think everything is possible tomorrow. We're definitely going to try our best to get ahead at the start and lead from there. But yeah, it wasn't the ideal qualifying because I couldn't set a good lap on the used tyre, probably lacking the new tyre for tomorrow for the first stint. But I think anything can happen, and we will try our best.
Well, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
That's your top three for the Barcelona Grand Prix. It is Carlos Sainz with Max Verstappen just in front of him and Charles Leclerc, your pole sitter once again. And Jack Nicholls, that was, I think, pretty thrilling qualifying, even though we were kind of denied of a Verstappen final lap lunge for pole.
Yeah, and on that, it seems like maybe the replay we got was sort of a little, maybe not misleading, but maybe that was Verstappen backing off at turn 3, because he said the issue was he had no power or the DRS didn't open. So that suggests to me that he felt like he was lacking straight line speed in the straight when he started the lap, rather than the car sort of dying dramatically at turn 3. So I think that was perhaps a less serious issue for Red Bull, even though it was one, but it could have been the DRS didn't open, or maybe didn't have the right energy deployment or something like that. So maybe not quite as dramatic and concerning for them, they will be hoping.
Tell you what, Leclerc, his fourth pole of the season, he leads the championship by 19 points. It's exactly what he needed, and my word, he chose his moment, didn't he? Because, Mark, that spin could have been hugely costly.
Yeah, it could. I mean, we saw how crucial Max Verstappen's banker lap was, that first lap in the session. That's the one that's enabled him to be sitting on the front row. So Charles Leclerc didn't get that opportunity, but he did get the second opportunity, and my goodness, didn't he make the most of it?
He really did. And I tell you what, Andrew Benson's prediction wasn't a million miles off, was it? Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz. He got the top three, right? So we'll let him have his glory day, I think. It'll be Russell starting P4, Perez in P5, Hamilton 6, with Bottas, Magnussen, Ricciardo and Schumacher making up the top 10. Mercedes back, Jack? Nearly?
No. Like,
nearly.
A bit better, but they were 7 tenths away from pole position.
Yeah.
Was that the biggest? Is that the biggest margin this season? I don't know, but yeah.
Okay, we won't get too excited, but let's see what the race holds tomorrow. We know this and F1 who organise the sport and put the show on in a way, and certainly it feels like that's going to come to a head. But Andrew, just to be clear, that the whole alleged copying of the Aston Martin of Red Bull, that doesn't really have that much to do with this stance between the FIA and F1, or are you saying that actually the way it's governed and the way that they have to address this issue